Before we get started, a quick reminder. Unlocked is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for any health concerns. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, and give a thumbs up, and share across all platforms. Unlocked. Mental performance, physical results. Welcome to Unlocked. I'm Coach Eric. We're normally talking about mental performance so that we can get some physical results. And last episode, I went off on a tangent that took what I thought was going to be one episode and made it into what looks like it's going to be three. And that's okay. So we talked about the play for fun mentality and the pros and cons of that. And today, we're going to contrast that. We're going to go after the win at all costs mentality, because in sports, too often, we separate the concept of coaching into those two categories. You're coaching either to win or you're coaching to have fun. You're either playing to win or you're playing to have fun. You're either signing your kid up to win or you're signing your kid up to have fun. And that's why this is so important for everybody. This isn't just for coaches. Understanding these mentalities is actually even more important for the player and for the person responsible for signing the player up, because you have to understand the pros and cons and where it fits in your life. So let's jump into this. The double-edged sword that is the win at all cost mentality. Before we jump too far into it, let's give the chance for the opposition to say their piece. Ugh, win at all cost destroys the fun. But winning is fun. It is. It's fun. Winning is fun. And it should be fun. It shouldn't just be a relief. It should be fun. But let's examine win at all costs. Win at all costs basically says victory above all else. It focuses on strategies and tactics. It's less about learning how to do the skills of the sport and more about learning how to win at the sport. And that's important. You know, I usually talk about baseball first in these conversations. We're going to start with basketball on this one, although it applies on the field also. But if you're going to basketball practice every day and you're learning new offensive plays, you're learning new press breaks, you're learning new presses, and your focus is really, really, really on strategy to beat the other team. That's all we're worried about. You're trying to minimize our weaknesses, not replace them, not build them up into skills, minimize the damage they do, maximize the potential of our existing strengths, and capitalize on the other team's weaknesses in order to ensure victory. Whew, that sounds like great coaching to me. It is. That's good coaching. No doubt about it. The cost there, we'll talk about later. But the value there is you've increased the probability that you're going to win because your team is cleaner. Their strategies are sounder. They're able to run their plays better. And so you've really focused on those tactics, on those strategies in order to maximize your possibility for winning. Yeah. That means you got to have to play the better players more, right? Yeah, absolutely. 100%. You want to win. So your starting five is on the court the majority of the game. They run the plays the best. They understand the strategy the best. They've got their timing down. They give you the best chance to run the score up. And if you manage to do that, everybody else can get some time. Otherwise, it's water breaks for them. When it's time to give the starter a breather, and then we'll throw some of the bench guys out there. The bad side of that, though, is it probably happens at practice that way, too. I know every coach will tell you, well, you earn your playtime at practice. But if your playtime at practice is with the other guys fighting for a job and you're always going up against the best players, you're not giving that player an equal opportunity to grow and develop and to show you what they can do as a coach. And it could actually block the coach from being able to develop that player, and it may even reduce their probability of identifying a player that's actually really, really good in their starting five because they never gave them a chance to click with that starting five. But that, I digress. That's for later in this episode. We're talking about the fundamental concepts, the key characteristics of this thing. So not only is it all about maximizing your playtime for the players you think are going to make you most likely to win. It's also about having really intense training and evaluating high pressure situations at practice, right? It's about eliminating errors as much as it is about maximizing successes. So you're going to put them in practice in these high intense situations. You're going to allow the scrubs to really foul hard the starters sometimes and not blow it dead, because what you want is for those starters to play through it. So you're going to really stress strategy and tactics and eliminating errors. The advantage, of course, is now you've got a more resilient and mentally tough group, at least with the starters. You know they have strong work ethic. You know they have a commitment to excellence because they survived the misery you put them in at practice, at least your starters. And with this type of mentality, you're going to get tangible results. You're going to have things like championships, winning records. You're going to get recognition in a form that you can publicize if what you're doing is focused on winning and you're successful at it. And you're going to be better prepared for advanced competition. So if you're a JV coach who's only playing his starters and is winning a bunch of games, now those starters are going to be ready for varsity, maybe not the bench. And you personally are going to be more likely to get hired for varsity by a program that only cares about wins and losses. A program focused on development might not care as much. But if what you're going for is W's, 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 dubs, it's going to put you in a position to do that. That would be putting the only value on winning as being the win itself. And that's not really fair either. Because while winning is viewed as the ultimate measure of success for coaches in the win mindset, it's not the only thing that comes from it. Now, it may not feel like a huge win, but those players that get physically stronger and mentally stronger, that learn work ethic and become really committed and focused individuals, can carry those skills into non-sport related things. It's going to help them if they apply those skills in academics. It's going to help them apply those skills in the workforce, at their house, in the yard, with their own children. So it does give them skills beyond just ring collecting. I know that's often what people from the other side of the fence are like, oh, you're just trying to collect trophies. No, it's not. It's not just about trophies. Now, sometimes winning a state title is really the focus and the only goal. And sometimes that can blind a coach to the other things they need to do as a coach, and they can leave their program stripped barren if they aren't developing along the way. But if they win that state title, every player on that team is going to look back on that for the rest of their lives as an accomplishment. And because they'll have had that accomplishment, it's going to give them motivation to accomplish other things. Because here's the thing about winning. Once you do it and you feel the joy of it, you want to do it more. You want to win more. And that extends beyond the playing field. You're going to want to win at life. So there are advantages here. I'm not just talking about chasing plastic rings. That may not help the guy down the bottom of the bench as much, but even he is going to see the rewards reaped by those who are victorious. For these coaches, the end justifies the means. You've implemented these intense training regimens. You've pushed players beyond their comfort zones. You've made in-game decisions that maximize the chances of winning, even if maybe it's at the expense of individual development and enjoyment. And so for players, you have to look at that and understand you're going to be held to a very high standard, and you're going to be expected to perform under pressure. Mistakes are going to be met with immediate and maybe, probably, possibly harsh feedback. I mean, we're talking about criticism here. Coaches are looking to eliminate errors. So you as a player on a team in this environment have to understand that what's going to happen is you're going to get your butt chewed for every little mistake. And as a player, you have to evaluate, is that an environment I can thrive in? Is that an environment I need to learn how to thrive in to meet the goals of where I want to get? I want to play at school X when I'm done in high school, and their coach is a taskmaster. Well, then if what's critical to you is playing at that school, you better learn how to play for a taskmaster. So despite the criticisms, there are advantages to this kind of an approach especially when we're talking about those highly competitive environments where success is measured in wins and losses. It's measured in championships. It's measured in accolades. And so you're going to develop resilience. You're going to develop mental toughness. You're going to learn how to handle high stakes and recover from setbacks. And when you prioritize winning, you're going to develop work ethic and a shared commitment to excellence. Well, that all sounds great, Coach. Why'd you bother with the play for fun mentality? This sounds awesome. There are disadvantages. While win at all costs can produce results, it does have some significant drawbacks. Yeah, that kind of environment can breed toxicity. That focus on winning can lead to physical and emotional burnout. It can have a negative effect on individual players, on team dynamics. It can actually affect the broader sports culture. When you're at a high school with a team that is absolutely hardcore win at all costs, and let's say it's a fall sport and it's crushing the soul of its players, and they finally get out of that sport, it's time to move on to their winter sport. And they're looking at that coach going, you know what? I don't have it in me anymore. Fall whoop my butt. Don't have it. It affects the other sports. And if it becomes the reputation of the school, now players might not even bother signing up when they get to high school. Superstar coming out of middle school is like, yeah, I just don't want to get yelled at. I'm not down for that. And even if it's only the fall coach who's known for doing that, the winter coach may lose players because the school has a reputation. The environment is there. And so the reach can go beyond the locker room. And look, burnout is a real problem. Not just physical burnout, although that can be a problem too. Not just sore muscles, but actual injuries from overuse. And we see this with pitchers in baseball a lot now, where it's like you take a stock off the shelf Honda Civic, and you throw in all kinds of performance modifications to the engine. You don't touch the transmission, but you've got this thing pumping out twice as much horsepower, and then you gun it, and it's flying, and you're feeling good, and the transmission just... because you didn't beef it up also. Well, that happens with young athletes because their bodies are physically maturing at different rates and different parts of their body, and they have capabilities of exceeding the capabilities of their body. So a pitcher might not have the external rotation muscles needed to safely slow down and stop the internal rotation muscles as they're throwing heat. And now this kid who should be throwing 75, 76, but has beefed himself up and is throwing 85, blows out his elbow, needs to get a pin put in it because his growth plate separated, or blows out his shoulder because his growth plate separated, or God forbid, has to have Tommy John surgery in high school. And we're seeing way more of that because we've souped up our engines, but we haven't taken care of the entirety of the car because what we're worried about is winning, and speed wins. Okay, so the other side also involves the pressure to perform, sapping out the joy of the game. Winning is fun, but when it becomes the only way you can enjoy the game, if winning is the only success that can bring you joy, you're now taking joy out of the game because you're creating a fear of failure. You're going to diminish the confidence of your players. And look, players, if you're in that role, it's going to affect your mental health. You've got to learn how to build yourself back up if you've got a coach who is constantly breaking you down. There's lots of exercises out there you can do. Get with a mental performance coach, learn your ABCs, learn future self, learn box breathing, learn all these things that you can do to help your mental performance fight back against getting grinded down because you want to win, but you don't want to get broken in the process. And what you really, really don't want is for that win at all cost mentality to lead to a situation where questionable practices become the norm. I'm talking about bending rules, encouraging unsportsmanlike behavior, prioritizing short-term success over long-term well-being. We saw this years ago in baseball and in other sports with steroid use, where the future health of the athlete was risked for the short-term benefits of success. We've seen this a lot in other sports where they play injured and they risk long-term setbacks, long-term disability in order to have short-term success. Concussions, I think, are the biggest red flag for that right now. I talked about Tommy John a little bit, but you mostly can come back from that. But if you ever watched football when they have the Hall of Famers come walking out on the field and they hobble out there, these guys are in their 50s and they walk like they're in their 80s. And so there's long-term repercussions to the fact that they put their body through what they put their body through. And that's part of that win-at-all-costs environment where you're willing to sacrifice your well-being for the team's goal. And it's not just the good players, the players that are out there beating up their bodies that have long-term repercussions of this win-at-all-costs mentality. And it's not just the burnout. It's not just the mental fatigue where there are negative sides to this. Think about the less skilled, less developed, the younger player, the player who's a late bloomer. Think about what this does to those players. Because instead of being nurtured, these players are going to be sidelined in favor of those who contribute more immediately to a team's success. And that makes a lot of sense at the highest levels. When you're talking professional sports where everybody's a grown man, yeah, okay. Your goal is to win. Your financial stability depends on winning. And everybody's kind of on an even playing field. But when you start talking about high school sports, and especially middle school sports, where hormones and maturation play such a huge role in how much these players can accomplish, when you take that cutthroat, win-at-all-cost attitude and approach, you tend to leave behind players who could be extremely beneficial to your program in a big picture way. So let's think about, you got a middle school team, you've got an undersized player, he's got great reflexes, but he hasn't developed the height and the muscle mass to throw a ball as hard as one of these other guys on your team who's already shaving. Now, big picture, player A is going to mature into a 6'4" hard thrower with a great physique if he's nurtured and groomed. Player B is already 5'10", already throws 15 miles an hour harder than player A, and gives you a chance to win right now. So which player are you going to focus on? Well, you're going to probably focus on the guy who's already a ready product, right? He can gun it. So now player A doesn't touch the field as often, doesn't get as many reps in practice, doesn't get the focus and the growth. And when they do finally get to play in that garbage time, they're haunted by the fear that when one poor throw happens, it's going to land them back on the bench because they're not in an environment where that mistake is accepted and is considered part of the growth. So this prevents them from growing as a player, but it also stops them from pushing their limits. So during the opportunities they do receive, they're not even going to be able to maximize them because they know that results are the only thing that matters. So now this player who has significant potential and could develop into a star may never actually develop the skills or the confidence needed to excel. And because they're never really given a chance to experiment or make mistakes in real game situations, they're going to go from middle school to high school and they're going to grow physically. They're hopefully going to grow mentally, but they may not even play anymore. They may be out of the sport. And the next coach may be looking down his pipeline going, well, how did we lose that guy? Well, if you have a win-at-all-cost mentality at every level of your program, how are you going to develop that guy? Where are you going to develop that guy? And if you're that guy or that guy's parents, if you're player A, how do you keep the love burning, the desire to get better going, when your coach puts you on the bench and never brings you out to try? And that's a really difficult question when you talk about the win-at-all-cost mentality and how you as a player cope with that. And just like when you're talking about playing for fun and finding outside resources, I wish every program provided these resources, but they don't. You as a player, especially a late bloomer, especially someone who's being neglected, you need to know what your options are. Sometimes it's extreme. Maybe you're transferring to another school. Sometimes it's more reasonable. You're finding extra lessons and extra work. You're signing up for off-season teams where you're going to be able to play. And you're just kind of dealing when it comes to your school team. Maybe it's about going home and working with your siblings, your parents, and having fun with it that way to keep the fuel that keeps the fire burning flowing through your veins. So that when you do finally physically mature and reach your peak, you're still there, still playing. Because the hardest part from a third-party standpoint, when I look at these programs that are cutthroat, is that every player you lose is an opportunity you lose to reach your ultimate goal. If you're a win-at-all-cost program, your ultimate goal is winning. And if player A is still with your program 3 or 4 years from now, you're more likely to win 3 or 4 years from now. But if you're only looking at short-term goals, if you're only looking at maximizing your ability to win this year, well, in 3 or 4 years, player A is not going to be there for you. And your team isn't going to be as good as it could have been because that guy's gone. So when winning becomes the sole focus, the fundamental enjoyment can be lost. Your players start to feel like a cog in a machine rather than an individual that's passionate about the sport. And I talked about this before, but what ends up happening is instead of enjoying that excitement of victory, they only get the relief of not losing. The grind, the toxicity, the hyper focus on winning, it destroys the game's soul. And for many, this can lead to disillusionment and an early exit from sports altogether. We talk about this in sports all the time, and the younger the kid is, the more important this becomes in the conversation, and that is early burnout. And the brutal nature of winning at all costs is a big part of why sports, even at the elementary school level, has led to burnout. Because now 10-year-olds have to win at all costs. What? Nobody's scouting 10-year-olds. But we groom that mentality from T-ball on up. And it gets especially bad, I'm using baseball as the reference, when you transition into kid pitch. So for basketball, it gets particularly bad when you transition into full rules, where you're allowed the full court press, where they call every double dribble, where you have more flexibility for the coach on playtime. And this is true for all sports. It's not just team sports. It's true in individual sports like tennis and golf. And it's true across the board with all the other team sports as well. The reality is, as they get older, the pressure increases. But when it comes to win at all cost, we start pushing that pressure younger and younger and younger. And it gets worse. Because not only are we pushing that pressure younger, we've looked at all of this from the perspective of, does it hurt even when you win? What about for the teams that don't win? Just because you've gone all in on win at all cost doesn't mean you win. It just means you sacrifice. The end goal is victory, but that's not a guarantee. So now you've got players who are being neglected developmentally, who are not having fun. You have coaches who are struggling with high blood pressure from all the screaming they do and all the pressure they've put on themselves and on their teams, and they don't get the chip to even show for it. So what then? The negative consequences of that approach really start to pile up if you don't even succeed in the winning that you're so hell-bent on having. And let's face it, like it or not, most teams don't win a championship. Not this year, not next year, not in the foreseeable future. There aren't that many championships to go around. Even with all of the crazy tournaments that happen every single weekend, whether it be on the basketball court, the soccer field, the swim meets, the track meets, the baseball tournaments, even with all of those tournaments, not every team wins one every year. So you're not even worried about winning your league, winning your districts, or winning state like they do in the high school ranks. When you're talking about the younger kids, you might just be talking about tournaments and getting to play in 10 of them a year, and you still might not win one. you still might not win one. And so now you have to look down the line. You have to look at your teammates and say, did we get better? Are we better athletes today? Are we better people today for having played in this environment? Do we even want to play next year? So you have to keep in mind that beneath the surface of all the inspiring tales of triumph lies the overlooked narratives of the players who have had to endure significant personal sacrifices. Some of those sacrifices are mental health. Some of those sacrifices are physical health. Some of those sacrifices are just enjoying being there. And in the end, they may have won, but was the cost too high? I think that's the question we have to ask ourselves when we talk about the win at all cost mentality. All costs. Is that too high a price to pay? I'm Coach Eric. This has been the second part of our 3-part conversation about playing for fun versus playing to win. And in the next episode, we're going to tie this thing up and come to some conclusions about what you as a player can do to help yourself, what you as a coach can do to help maximize your team's ability to both have fun and win. And as a parent, of course, how you find the right environment for your players. So thank you for tuning in. This has been Unlocked Mental Performance, Physical Results.
Steps up to the plate, feeling the weight. The crowd's cheering loud, but it's up to fate. Struck out too many times, doubts creeping in, but he knows in his heart it's time to begin. He remembers the lessons, the words that they say. Keep your head up high, don't let fear lead the way. Act, take a swing, let the baton talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. Sun shining bright, he's feeling the heat. With every deep breath, he's back on his feet. Visualizing success, he's got a new plan. With the tools from Play Big, he's a brand new man. He knows it's a journey, not just a quick fix. With patience and practice, he'll find his own mix. Act, take a swing, let the back of the talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, ready to play. Setback's a lesson, every strike's a chance to rise up stronger, to take a new stance. With the crowd on his side, he's ready to show. With the ABCs in his heart, he's ready to go. Act, take a swing, let the back of the talk. Chest high, walk the walk. Breathe in deep, let the pressure unlock. You are focused, ready to rock. Commit to the moment, let the past fade away. Get back in the game, you're ready to play. So here's to the slumps, the struggles we face. With courage and commitment, we'll find our own place. Every new inning is a chance to rise. Chase the champion spirit to the skies. Every new inning is a chance to rise.